Hi, and welcome to another Hopper on microcontrollers video. This one's a cry for help on the Teensy, but we're going to start with the Raspberry Pi Pico I've got here. So let's get into the Hopper monitor and load my Mandelbrot sample, Gordon Henderson's Mandelbrot sample, and run it. And on the Raspberry Pi Pico, it takes 1115 milliseconds. Make a note, and then we'll load up the Civ benchmark from Byte Magazine from about 1980. We'll run that. It runs 10 times here. So each iteration takes 330 milliseconds, and then I've got a final benchmark, which is one I ported from Python to sort of benchmark against MicroPython. And let's see how long that takes on the Pi Pico. So 1203 milliseconds on the Pi Pico. Okay, so let's switch across to the other board. So there we have our Teensy. It's a slightly larger ARM Cortex chip, or slightly more powerful ARM Cortex chip. It comes with not lots of goodies in the bag. So let's try here. So I've got to get out of the monitor and get back into the monitor because I changed serial ports. Load up the Mandelbrot sample and run it. And it takes 119 milliseconds, and if you recall, that was what's 1115 milliseconds on the other one. Let's load up the next benchmark, the Civ benchmark prime numbers from Byte Magazine from 1980. Run that. So instead of taking 330 milliseconds, that takes 39 milliseconds. That's about 9 or 10 times as fast. Let's load the Fibonacci example and run that. Yes. 126 milliseconds versus 1203 milliseconds. So, suffice it to say, this thing is a lot more zippy than a Pi Pico. It's also more expensive, but it's a nice board. I have most of Hopper running perfectly. So if I load up the test suite, for example, it's dictionaries, lists, all that stuff's working. If I look at test numbers, see how that runs. Yeah, everything running, floating point maths, longs, all that. It's very fast as well. So I've been fairly successful getting Hopper to run, but the cry for help is on the Arduino side. So the way this didn't take me very long to get it working, less than an hour. And part of the reason is because I intended it that way in the first place. So the way the portable runtime works is it's written in Hopper, and then it's machine translated into C++, into like a really big file, a really big runtime file here, 10,000 lines of C++. That's the runtime. And then it's got a couple of files up here that are platform specific, like the Wi-Fi, the web server, file system, that sort of thing. If you, in your Arduino, you choose your board as a Teensy board, and you choose their COM port. Is it plugged in? Yes, it is. Their COM port should appear here. Why is it not appearing there? Let's try and find it again. Oh, I know why. Because I've still got it connected here. No, I don't. Don't know why. Huh. Let's have a look, see if it reappeared. Yeah, they like to connect with their own serial port to upload. And so, yeah, you compile and you upload just from this project that's in the repo. And then there's defined in there that will automatically configure it for the Teensy rather than for RP2040 boards. As you can see, it's not all done. So what have I managed? What have I not succeeded in porting so far? Let me show you. So the first thing is in Earl Furlhau's RP2040 library, he's got, instead of just attachInterrupt, he's got attachInterruptParam, so you can pass an extra argument to your attachInterrupt. And I can't seem to make this work on the Teensy because I don't think this is a normal Arduino thing. I could probably fake it by intercepting the interrupt and then doing the call, because this is used to be able to attach function delegates in Hopper to pins, to interrupts on pins, to pins changing status. So this API being missing is one thing that would be nice to add, but it's kind of minor. It's nice for buttons, like when you've got buttons on a device. The really big one is the file system. So I tried to properly install LittleFS on the Teensy, but I failed. It says it just uses the regular Arduino one. Couldn't make it work. Unfortunately, I can't find online any info about how you get your Teensy program, how you write into its EEPROM, its Flash. You can get the Arduino program in there, but I can't get the Hopper program in there. So normally on like an RP2040 board, I don't need an extra storage to store the Hopper program. I can just put it straight into the same flash as the Arduino is flashing into. But that doesn't appear to be the case on the Teensy. But it does always come with an SD card slot. So it would be fine if we could just make the SD card slot work and then implement the file system. So to implement the file system, there's a lot of APIs, but if someone else did a sort of a little hello world of how you get an SD card working, just, a worked example with a couple of APIs, I'd be able to implement this in half an hour, all the rest of them. I just need to see how to configure it and get it working. I'm also trying to make it so there's only one project in Arduino, so it needs to be friendly with the other project, and that's a problem with Arduino when you install multiple libraries with the same name, for example. Okay, what's the final thing that I'm having trouble with on Arduino? It's the timer, and I kind of knew this was going to be a problem. So it's using so the timer functionality in Hopper relies on a library that I found online that specifically uses. Actually, there's various different implementations of this sort of thing, and I sort of cobbled together my variant of it. It uses some of the built-in APIs that are part of the RP2040 runtime library. So they don't exist outside of that in the Arduino environment. So add repeating timer, and there's another one, and then cancel repeating timer, those sorts of things. So without these APIs, it's difficult to try and emulate the same kind of awesome timer functionality that Hopper has on the RP2040 when it comes to the to these new boards. Well, not to these new boards, specifically to the Teensy 4.1. Anyway, having said all that, I can highly recommend these Teensys. They're super fast. I first started using them when I was experimenting with these retro shields of Vertex from 8-bit Force. So I was experimenting with them to run 8-bit CPUs on the Teensy. But then it occurred to me it would be kind of nice to actually have Hopper running on the Teensy since it's such a fast little board. Anyhow, I look forward to some support here. So if someone who's got more experience with the Teensy 4.1 than I do, knows how to get the SD card working, that'd be a great start. And I think that's the most important piece of missing functionality right now. And then attaching a callback onto a pin is kind of key as well. So if there's some way to emulate this attachInterruptParam API, that would also be kind of handy. Great. Thanks for watching. I look forward to a volunteer putting his hand up or her hand up. Thank you. Cheers.